This Saturday is UFC 302, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. And in the co-main event, we have Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. And this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for that fight. I'm so looking forward to Strickland versus Costa. I think this is a phenomenal stylistic matchup. I know Strickland is typically kind of boring, back up, pump the jab, teep kick. But we saw in the Dricus fight, when someone takes the fight to him, it usually ends up turning into an exciting fight. And we know Paulo Costa, what does he like to do? He likes to march forward and throw combinations. So I think stylistically, this is a great matchup by the UFC. And also, I feel like there's a lot on the line in this fight. Sean Strickland got a title shot that he never deserved, beat Israel Adesanya to win the belt, then loses the belt immediately in his first title defense against Du Plessis. If he wants to get back in the title discussion, he has to beat Paulo Costa. And for Paulo Costa, he's got pressure on him as well, because the fact that he has 0 good wins in the last few years, arguably you can make the case he has 0 good wins in general. And now for once he's actually being active, which I think is a factor in this fight. And there's actually another major factor that came into my prediction that I didn't really discuss in the full card prediction video that we're going to break down in this video. But he's active for the first time in forever. Is this Paulo Costa returning potentially to his winning ways against Sean Strickland and getting right back in the title discussion? Because Sean Strickland right now is ranked number 1, was just a champion. You know, barely lost his title to Dricus Du Plessis, but what I think lost in that title is him backing up and accepting the pressure of Dricus Du Plessis. And he was mentally broken going into that fight. I'm wondering how Sean Strickland's mentally going into this Costa fight. You know, Dricus broke him in the press conference leading up, and then you had Strickland, saying he was going to kill him and stuff like that, but really behind the scenes, he was messaging him and apologizing. Then he loses the title, complains afterwards, headbutt and this and that, and I should have got the decision and I was robbed. I'm wondering where he is mentally. Because Costa, I feel like a lot of people could overlook Costa in this fight, Strickland included. So I really love this matchup, and I think there's a lot of really important things in terms of where they're going to be in the middleweight division after this fight. So I absolutely love this fight. Before I get into my prediction, which may have changed ever so slightly from my full card prediction video, I may have changed my prediction. I'm still a little bit on the fence. Let's look at the tail of the tape. Sean Strickland 28-6, Paulo Costa 14-3. Strickland ranked number 1, Costa ranked number 7. They're both 33 years old. They're both 6'1". Strickland has a 76-inch reach and Costa has a 72-inch reach. So a 4-inch reach advantage for Sean Strickland, which could play a massive factor in this fight. Paulo Costa. Let's start with Paulo Costa before we actually get into the prediction. He has 0 good wins, really. You know, he's a finisher. He doesn't have one-punch KO power, but 11 of his 14 wins via KO. He's lost once via KO against Adesanya, has 1 submission, has 2 decision wins, 2 decision losses. But look at his recent resume. He lost to Robert Whittaker, fair enough, 298 in February. Not a horrible loss. Beat Luke Rockhold, came off the couch. Not really came off the couch, but Rockhold kind of washed up. Lost to Marvin Vettori, lost to Israel Adesanya. So his last real wins, quality wins against Yoel Romero, that's 2019. And arguably, you could give that to Yoel Romero. You look at Sean Strickland, former champion, we've already talked about him. Kind of a decision machine, has 11 TKOs, but it's typically against lower level opposition. Has lost twice via TKO. Has a couple submissions, doesn't really use it, but he's a decision machine. 13 decision wins, 4 decision losses. Coming off that loss against Dricus, coming off that massive win over Israel Adesanya before that, Abus Magomedov, Nasruddin Imavov, which actually is a decent win, has aged quite well. But I feel like this is a tricky fight to pick, especially if you're just looking at resumes. But for my official prediction, I'm picking Paulo Costa. I'm changing my pick a little bit, though. I originally picked him via decision because this is a 5-round fight. I know that favors Strickland, but I thought, okay, Costa can win 3 rounds, maybe lose 2. I think it'll be a close fight, and then Costa will kind of edge him out because of the pressure. That was my initial prediction. But I went back and started watching some of the fights, and I watched them previous to my full card prediction video, but then I really started to think about it more before I did this video, and I just literally 10 minutes ago rewatched Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis, and I rewatched Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker, their most recent fights, which was in January for Strickland, which is in February for Costa. And I'm switching my pick to Paulo Costa by TKO. I think Costa's going to catch him with a head kick. Go back and look at Dricus Du Plessis. I know Dricus has really good kicks. Landed the head kick over and over and over on Sean Strickland. they weren't landing like crazy clean, but I don't think Dricus has the same speed on his head kicks as somebody like Paulo Costa does. Paulo Costa's spinning back wheel kick would have finished Robert Whittaker potentially had there been another 10 seconds in their fight at UFC 298. Paulo Costa has really good kicks, nasty body kicks as well, and I think Sean Strickland is kind of susceptible to getting caught by a head kick. I think he got hurt years ago against Dos Santos by a spinning back kick, but also just that Philly shell stance and where he's parrying a lot. And Costa, if he presses forward and throws lots of volume, and I really think Costa's main problem and one of his biggest weaknesses is throwing like 1 or 2 strikes. He used to throw a lot more volume, and it seems like over the past few years, he hasn't. I mean, we haven't barely seen him because of injuries and sicknesses and contract disputes. But I feel like, especially in the Whittaker fight, but again, coming off a long layoff, the fight before that, he fought Luke Rockhold in August of 2022. So we're looking at almost, a year. We're looking at a year and a half between the time he fought Luke Rockhold and the time that he fought Robert Whittaker. So there could be some ring rust there, but he doesn't really throw. He wasn't in the Whittaker fight throwing a lot of combinations. He started to, it seemed like it, really get more aggressive as the fight went on because I guess he realized he was losing. But I think in this fight against Sean Strickland, Strickland is such a decision machine. He likes to back up, pump the jab, pump the teep kick, and just try to be elusive. But if you pressure him heavily, and Dricus pressured him heavily, he backs up with his chin up in the air. And then also there's openings when he's parrying away shots. And in the Robert Whittaker fight, you've seen Paulo Costa really pumping the jab against Robert Whittaker and having a lot of success. What made Robert Whittaker very successful against Paulo Costa was rushing forward with big power shots. And even those power shots of Whittaker's that landed, I mean, Costa, it really didn't affect Costa. He got a little bit of respect from Costa, but it didn't affect Costa. What do you think Costa's going to do against Sean Strickland, where he knows, you look at the past from Strickland, you look at the Abus Magomedov fight, the first round in particular, you look at the Jarrett Cannonier fight, you look at the Dricus fight. What is Strickland's biggest weakness? When he gets backed up. And that's what Paulo Costa does best. He presses forward and throws really hard shots and has no respect for his opponent's power. You think if he wasn't respecting Robert Whittaker's power, you think he's going to respect Sean Strickland's power, who's a guy who doesn't really finish anyone? He finished Abus, but it was more of a cardio thing than anything. Abus was winning and dominating the first round with forward pressure. I see Paulo Costa catching him. I see there being too many openings. If Dricus is landing, I know Dricus is champion. Dricus is a sloppy striker. And I know he was mixing in the grappling, but he was finding that head kick from the first round on. He was landing in the first round. He was landing in the third round. He was landing it throughout the fight. Costa has lightning fast head kicks. He can throw it with his lead leg. He can throw it with his back leg. And he has nasty body kicks that he can throw with his lead leg as well. So he can throw it on either leg. And Strickland backs up. If you pressure him, if Costa starts throwing actual combinations, which he really wasn't doing in his last fight, and starts backing Strickland up with combinations, and then Strickland's trying to parry and he sticks his chin up in the air, if Costa can throw a nice head kick right behind that, I think he can find Strickland's chin. And we've seen Strickland, he has a very good chin, but there's only so many shots that you can absorb. And a shin right to the chin, I know Paulo Costa, there's kind of a false narrative that Paulo Costa has brutal KO power just because of his physique. I think a lot of people are confusing that and the fact that he has a lot of TKOs, but he doesn't really have that one-shot power with his hands. A shin right to the chin, I don't think Strickland's eating that like Yoel Romero did. I don't think that's going to happen. Pereira KO'd him, and I know Pereira has ungodly power, but if I just imagine a scenario where Strickland probably ekes out the first round, pumping the jab, teep kick, kind of keeping Costa off of him. Costa getting a little bit frustrated, chopping at the legs a little bit, but Strickland's checking him. And then I see in the second round, Costa starting to pick up the pace, back Strickland up. Strickland's really good when he's dictating the pace. He's known for his cardio because a lot of the time he gets to dictate the pace of the fight because he's so elusive. He's good at parrying. He's good at getting kind of like flailing in front of him, blocking shots and avoiding shots. And I do think that reach advantage will come as a factor in this fight. I think Costa's going to have trouble reaching him. But I think Costa will start to have some success backing Strickland up. And I just, watching Strickland against Dricus, who's so sloppy, and seeing Strickland back up with his chin in the air and getting clipped with big overhands from Dricus, not a lot of them, but seeing him getting clipped with those on a decent enough basis, seeing him get clipped, I would say with, I don't know, quite a few head kicks. I don't remember exactly how many it was, but Dricus was landing the head kick in like every single round. Paulo Costa is going to back him up, slam a head kick to the jaw, and hurt Strickland badly. Maybe not brutally KO him like Pereira did. Maybe not brutally KO him like Pereira did Jamal Hill, but he's unwilling to admit. But slamming that head kick, dropping Sean Strickland, and finishing him with ground and pound. I think Costa knows this is a must-win. This is a must-win for me. I have to get it done against Sean Strickland. And I think as far as like top-ranked guys, this is a decent matchup for Costa because he likes to pressure forward. He's made of granite. He's not going to respect the power of Sean Strickland. And on top of all that, I understand Strickland's an excellent, elusive boxer. But on top of all that, I do think a major factor is, and one of the main reasons that I picked Costa, I didn't talk about this in my full card prediction video, is the fact that USADA's gone. I understand USADA was gone when Costa fought in February, but it went away in January, early January. When I'm seeing guys like Jose Aldo and, just to even mention another guy like Kyler Phillips, who all of a sudden has this crazy cardio, I think a lot of fighters have now found, I don't think the UFC is encouraging guys to cheat, but I think, okay, now that the system is kind of laid out for everyone, I feel like everyone has more opportunities, okay? And I'm not saying Costa's cheating, but I'm just saying with USADA gone, I feel like there's a lot of guys having these crazy career resurgence, and I could see Costa coming in with 5-round cardio. I see Costa coming in looking better than ever because he's been able to train better than ever. He's healing up faster and, God knows what. And I see Costa going in there and being able to find a finish against Sean Strickland. I really do. I mean, look at the way Jose Aldo looked. Jose Aldo's in his late 30s. Costa's 33. And again, I'm not saying for sure, but a guy like Costa who doesn't really pass the eye test, USADA's gone now. He's staying active. He fought in February. There's not going to be ring rust. He's going to come back right back in June. He's fighting a guy in Strickland who has two weapons. Two weapons, the jab and the teep. He never throws any power shots. He fights literally like a bitch. He says to the war and, go into war and to the death. And then he goes out there and just pumps a jab and a teep kick. Okay, could that win him a decision? Sure. But I think Costa, even in my original pick, I think there's going to be some close rounds. I think this is going to be a very competitive fight. I think both guys are going to get busted up a little bit. But I think in a close fight where there's rounds that are hard to score, Costa's pressure is going to be looked at favorably on the judges' scorecards. So I see Costa winning this fight. I really do. I think he's going to pressure Sean Strickland, back him up, smash the body. I think he'll be kicking the legs a bit, but Strickland is a very good leg kick checker. We've seen him do it against Adesanya. We've seen him do it against Dricus as well. Dricus was having trouble chopping the legs, but Dricus then went to the body, was landing to the body, was switching stances, landing to the body, was landing head kicks as well. I think Costa's kicks and pressure are the keys to winning this fight for Paulo Costa. And I just think Sean Strickland went from one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC to one of the most overrated fighters in the UFC with one win over Israel Adesanya. I know I already crapped on Paulo Costa's resume, okay? But let's look at Sean Strickland's resume as well. He lost to Dricus in his first title defense. He beat Israel Adesanya. Great win. Okay, he beat Adesanya, who was a champ for a very long time. I know technically just gained it back, but you get my point. Before that, Abus Magomedov, not even UFC caliber, and was dominating the first round. Nasruddin Imavov, solid win for Strickland. Again, his resume isn't as bad as Paulo Costa's, but Nasruddin took that on short notice as well as Strickland, so I feel like there's always a grain of salt with that. Before that, lost to Jarrett Cannonier, who used power shots and pressure to win that fight. Before that, got KO'd by Alex Pereira. Before that, beat Jack Hermanson. Okay, Jack Hermanson's an okay win. Before that, we're talking Uriah Hall. Paulo Costa smashed Uriah Hall as well. Before that, Christoph Jocko. Before that, Brendan Allen. Okay, fair enough, Brendan Allen. But Brendan Allen, I think, is a scrub, even though he's top ranked right now. So it's not like Strickland has this amazing resume of like great performance after great performance after great performance. And I think Paulo Costa is going to go in there and pressure him. And I think Paulo Costa is just so fast and so athletic. And Strickland's just really elusive. He doesn't have all those, natural or unnatural gifts from like Paulo Costa has. And I think the speed advantage of Paulo Costa will be a factor in this fight. And I think the fact that he doesn't have to worry about any power coming back from Sean Strickland, I think that's really what's going to seal this fight. I know Paulo Costa lost to Marvin Vettori. I think he was injured going into that fight. There's a reason that Dana White and the UFC didn't shit on Paulo Costa for all the antics he did in the lead up to that. And that was a horrible card that if the main event fell out, they were going to have to cancel the entire card. I know he lost to Robert Whittaker. I think Whittaker beat Strickland. And how did Whittaker win that fight? He pressed forward and threw big power shots. Strickland's not going to do that. I know he had a garbage fight against Luke Rockhold. They were at elevation. And I know I'm making a bunch of excuses for Paulo Costa. That's not my point. My point is, I think Paulo Costa, because of his garbage resume and because of some of these shitty performances, I think the perception of his skills is worse than it actually is. I think he's a good fighter. I think he has very good pressure. I think he's super durable. His stamina actually looked good against Robert Whittaker. He looked good in the third round, had a salvageable third round. And I think against a guy like Sean Strickland, who backs up with pressure and puts out low output, I think if Costa throws good combinations and dictates the forward pressure and dictates the pace of the fight, I think Paulo Costa gets it done. I could see him winning a really close 3-2 decision where he wins the first three rounds and maybe loses the last two to Strickland. But what my official pick is going to be, Paulo Costa, and this has changed from my other video. I'm picking Paulo Costa, second round head kick TKO, catches him with a head kick, drops him, finishes him off with ground and pound. Paulo Costa gets it done against Sean Strickland at UFC 302. Let me know what you guys think of the prediction down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Make sure to check out the full card predictions. Subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.